Hello, prisoners. Father Mark. It is day 58 of the Bible in a Year, and it's Numbers chapter 7 and Deuteronomy chapter 7. Now, Numbers, verse 1 says, when Moses had completed the erection of the tabernacle, he anointed and consecrated it with all its equipment. And it occurs to me that it's kind of a guy thing. You know, equipment, guys love equipment, tools, gear, things like that. It's a guy thing. It's a gear thing for guys. And so, here we have God's telling Moses, the leader, and the Levites and priests, that these are the furnitures, these are the tools, these are the things, these are the sacrifices, these are the ways to butcher the animals and offer the sacrifices, and it's all very orderly, and it's ritual. It's something that is done in a certain way and according to a certain kind of pattern and ritual, and it's a guy thing. I would also maybe want to suggest that it's a God thing. Maybe it is a God thing. In other words, some people think that the Old Testament has God who likes ritual and priests and altars and ceremonies of this kind, but that in the New Testament, people who aren't Catholic, the evangelicals perhaps, or Protestants, who they don't believe in liturgy. There are non-liturgical Christian denominations that don't do, the Mass or the liturgy of the Eucharist like we do. And so they don't have altars, or they don't talk about sacrifice. They don't have a sort of a missal that has all the rubrics and the orderliness. And I would just suggest that we Catholics have to understand that our way is very biblical. And there's no reason to think that God has changed. I think that God does not change. And you can't say that there's one God, the God of the Old Testament, and there's another God, the God of the New Testament. And so liturgy well done with altars and candles and servers and processions and bells and incense and bells and smells, all those things that can be done so beautifully and reverently. This is what has been done since the dawn of civilization among human persons. And so to say that Jesus just wanted his 12 apostles to go around, like some might think, like a band of hippies in a Volkswagen van, and kind of just love one another, and no more of this ritualistic sort of thing that's passé. Well, you're saying that God has changed, or that I think human nature does not change. People like ritual. Even we have our Knights of Columbus and Daughters of Isabella and fraternal organizations that are full of customs and traditions. Even the rituals we have in our homes and holidays. We always sing the same song for happy birthday when we blow out the candles. Certain rituals is comforting for human beings, and God knows that, and God wants us to use ritual to honor him, and in this case, to reenact the death of his son Jesus on the cross. And in the Old Testament, it was obviously a prefiguring of Jesus's sacrifice. The lambs and the animals that were sacrificed on an altar, the blood splashed. It is a foreshadowing, and God did command that it be done in certain ways. And it's because God never changes, and he still commands us to do the holy sacrifice of the Mass and the other sacraments according to his will. To chapter 7, there is begins this whole section from verse 12 to verse 88 of chapter 7. And it's all this repetitious description of each of the 12 tribal leaders, and from each tribe, the representative comes up and brings certain gifts that are going to be used for the worship in the tabernacle, all the gear, basically, all this gear that's brought in to be used. And some might say that this is boring and this long list seems strange. But I've got a footnote here in one of my Bibles that says that that it was typical of ancient documents back then for registering peoples or registering workers in a temple or in a workplace. So it says here, the repetitious account of the same offerings brought by each of the tribal leaders and the summary of them are characteristic of official registration. So, it might seem strange to us, but back then this was to show that this is official. This is really official registration or documentation of things that are very important, and everyone has to do their part. At the end of the chapter 7 of Deuteronomy, we have this voice. It says, the voice of the Lord came to Moses, and it says, the voice addressed him from above the cover on the Ark of the Covenant, from between the cherubim. And anyway, I think that's a powerful sort of image. Just imagine Moses being, filled with awe and fear, hearing this voice coming from that empty space that's above the ark, this thing that was called the seat, mercy seat, where they believed that God's presence descended upon this box, this ark, which contained the Ten Commandments. That God's voice spoke to him from that space, from that empty space, from that void, and from from above the cover of the ark, which was called the mercy seat, where there was those two angels on either side, golden angels with their wings, from between the cherubim angels. What a beautiful image. And the voice began to speak, as we'll hear in the next chapter, about the menorah and the furnishings of the tabernacle and what needed to be done to purify the Levites and the priests so that they will be ready to, they have to be always washed before they would go in and make sacrifices. As for the book of Deuteronomy, we have some difficult passages where it, for us who know that war is a terrible thing, and but it's sometimes necessary. A just war is necessary, and kind of wonder why it is that God commanded that the Israelites go into Canaan, and as it says in verse 16, you shall not look on them with pity, and you shall put them under the ban. In other words, it's take no prisoners, basically. You're not supposed to have pity. And the way I understand that is that Moses was realizing that this is martial law. This is really an emergency situation. The Israelites, unfortunately, have a tendency to, kind of meld with the surrounding peoples and to adopt their pagan ways. And it just can't happen in this situation, because this is God's people establishing a holy nation. We cannot mix or do any mixed marriages, as it says, either with people from other religions. And so that's why it seems so harshly about that. I also tend to think that certainly if the peoples would move out of the land and not fight back, if they would leave, perhaps, in World War II, they would sometimes drop leaflets or brochures to tell the people, warn them to go away because we're going to have to bomb this area. Perhaps that kind of thing was done, or could have been done, or they could have been warned. But once they start to put up resistance, then the Israelites were told that they need to be making sure that they do not mix with these pagan peoples.